Joseph couldn't take it any longer. He then cried out to his attendants, "Out, all of you!" He wanted to be alone with his brothers when he told them who he is. He then broke down and wept aloud. His sobs were heard throughout the palace, and the news quickly carried out to Pharaoh's palace. He said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" His brothers were stunned and speechless at the fact that their brother Joseph was standing in front of them. He told them to come closer and said again, "I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. Don't be angry at yourselves for doing this to me, for God did it. He sent me here ahead of you to preserve your lives. These 2 years of famine will grow to 7, during which there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. God has sent me here to keep you and your families alive, so that you will become a great nation. Yes, it was God who sent me here, not you. He has made me a counselor for Pharaoh. I am manager of his entire household and ruler over all Egypt. Hurry back to my father and tell him, 'This is what your son Joseph says. God has made me master over all the land of Egypt. Come down to me right away. You will live in the land of Goshen, so that you can be near me with all your children and grandchildren, your flocks and herds and all you have. I will take care of you there, for there are still 5 years of famine ahead of us. Otherwise, you and your household will come to utter poverty." Joseph then continued to say, "You can see for yourselves, and so can my brother Benjamin, that I really am Joseph. Tell my father how I am honored here in Egypt. Tell him everything you have seen and quickly bring him to me." Weeping with joy, he embraced Benjamin, and Benjamin was also weeping. Joseph then kissed all his brothers and wept over them. They then began talking freely with him. Pharaoh had soon found out that Joseph's brothers had come. Pharaoh and his officials were very happy to hear this. Pharaoh then said to Joseph, "Tell your brothers to load their pack animals and quickly return to their homes in Canaan. Tell them to bring their father and all their families and to come and live here in Egypt. Tell them Pharaoh will assign to you the very best territory in the land of Egypt. You will live off the fat of the land. Tell your brothers to take wagons from Egypt to carry their wives and little ones and to bring their father. Don't worry about your belongings, for the best of Egypt is yours." So the sons of Jacob did as they were told. Joseph gave them wagons as Pharaoh had commanded, and he supplied them with provisions for their journey. He gave each one of them new clothes, but to Benjamin he gave 5 changes of clothes and 100 pieces of silver. He sent his father 10 donkeys loaded with the goods of Egypt, and 10 donkeys loaded with grain and all kinds of other food to be eaten on his journey. He sent his brothers off and said as they were leaving, "Don't quarrel along the way." They then left Egypt and returned to their father Jacob. Finally, they reached home and told their father, "Joseph is still alive. He is ruler over the land of Egypt." Jacob was stunned at the news. He couldn't believe it. But when they had given him Joseph's messages and he had seen all the loaded wagons that Joseph had sent, his spirit revived. Jacob then said, "It must be true. My son Joseph is alive. I will go and see him before I die." And so Jacob set out for Egypt with all his possessions. When he reached Beersheba, he offered sacrifices to God. During the night, God spoke to him in a vision. "Jacob, Jacob," he called. "Here I am," replied Jacob. "I am God," said the voice, "the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will see to it that you will become a great nation there. I will go with you, and I will bring your descendants back, but you will die in Egypt with your son Joseph by your side." Jacob then left Beersheba, and his sons took him to Egypt. They carried their wives and little ones in wagons that Pharaoh had provided for them. They also brought their livestock and all their belongings that they had acquired in the land of Canaan. Jacob and his entire family had finally arrived in Egypt. Jacob sent Judah ahead to get directions from Joseph to get to the land of Goshen. When they arrived there, Joseph then prepared his chariot and traveled to Goshen to meet his father. As soon as Joseph arrived, he embraced his father and wept on his shoulder for a long time. Then Jacob said to Joseph, "Now let me die, for I have seen with my own eyes and know you are still alive." Then Joseph said to all his brothers and his whole household, "I'll go and tell Pharaoh that you have all come from Canaan to join me, and I will tell him, 'These men are shepherds and livestock breeders. They have brought with them their flocks, herds, and everything they own.' So when Pharaoh calls you and asks about your occupation, tell him, 'We have been livestock breeders from youth, as our ancestors have been for many generations.' When you have told him this, he will let you live in the land of Goshen, for shepherds are despised in the land of Egypt."